Welcome back, my friends, to the Shrewd Dudes podcast. We got a lot to cover today. We're going to get into it hard. First of all, we got three crazy stories of three crazy broads. You're going to want to hear these kind of stories. And then we have a deep dive into the Trudeau saga, because apparently our dear fearless leader really stepped in it this weekend. And oh my gosh, the entire world is laughing at this country. It is nuts right now. So we're gonna do a bunch of like time machine stuff and go back and remind you who is the party that really does love them Nazis. And then some American news. We're gonna cover. Sorry, there's a lot of stories here. In American news, we're gonna cover a Batman researcher who says, heck no, I'm saying gay." And Ibram Kendi is apparently can't keep his mouth shut. And finally, Trump is liable for something. Apparently, I don't know. I guess when you throw enough stuff at the wall, it'll stick somewhere. So, got all this to cover. So much to get to in this Tuesday Newsday installment of the Shrewd News podcast. Let's get her done.
All right, we are back after another weekend for another installment of Tuesday Newsday. Of course, we are coming at you live on Twitch and Twitter, otherwise known as X.
We're back in the Calgary groove. We're back in the Calgary groove. We're back, that Calgary groove. You know, I can just keep this going. It's great. I'm just having a good time.
I don't want you to.
Unlike Trudeau, I am not high on cocaine. I am just like always very bubbly.
Alleged.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, apparently nobody can see that. Like, you see him doing that at all. Like, but yes, very, very alleged.
Very, very alleged.
Guy. Oh, what a joke.
But
But speaking of people who are not a joke, Stephen, how are you today?
Well, as I elaborated to you before the show.
You did.
So
unprepared. Trigger warning.
Well, not a trigger. Basically, just a rough outline. Family member has cancer. Things are going very badly.
Told you.
So we, of course, would appreciate and covet your prayers. But they were rushed from their small town hospital to a larger city hospital, and then taken from the larger city hospital to Calgary.
It's a big move.
And they have some blood that's built up in their lungs, so things are not looking well. And of course, this has all progressed since Saturday, so things have gotten progressively worse in the past few days.
Yeah, cancer's cancer's.
Yeah. Well, like I never knew my grandfather because he developed lung cancer. He died a couple months after my parents got engaged. He actually found out that he had lung cancer the day that my parents got engaged.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which my parents my dad, like, do not go to my dad for advice on how to propose. It was bad.
Literally, that just shows they're perfect for each other. The fact that she actually said yes.
Well, literally, like this is my dad's proposal. They went to a wedding. They came back from the wedding, and they both were like, they were having a yelling, like a fight. Because she thought the wedding was like, oh, it was just like wonderful, and I loved this, and I loved this, and I loved this. And he's like, it was so stupid. I hated this, and I hated this. Everything that she loved, he hated. And then they're just like fighting, and they're like, And literally, this is what he said. He's like, but, you know, I guess it's better to live with you than live without you. What do you say? And she's like, what?
Is that a proposal?
She's like, what's happening? And he's like, I'm proposing. She's like, this is how you're proposing?
Not like that, you're not.
And so apparently I was like, yeah. And he's like, what? It worked. And I'm like,
effective. I mean, he's like, I'm a busy man. I have things to do. I have to go, change the tires. So. That's sweet though, because that's the dream. to meet a girl that, like, no matter how much of a schmuck you are, that she still likes you. I'm like, that's the dream. It really is.
Yeah. Like, I wanted to find... That was one thing I did actually want to talk about a bit today. I was just having trouble finding, like, non-video, like, 20-minute videos about this whole, like, kind of red pill, black pill, like, marriage argument from a male perspective. About how, like, modern-day conservative men are like, well, what's the point of getting married if, like, no-fault divorce exists, if the women have all the control... Yeah.
You were watching that Culture War episode, weren't you?
No.
They went super deep into that whole concept.
Yeah.
You'd like that one.
I'm sure I would. It was more talking about it was like Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh and Pearl.
Is that the redheaded libertarian?
Yeah.
I like her. She's good.
Yeah, but she was very much in favor of, like, men, like, conservative men shouldn't get married. Yeah. It was like, oh.
I can understand why people say
like,
that.
I get why people are saying
giant trap. Giant trap for men.
Oh yeah, like, especially secular marriage. Like, I was actually talking to my coworker today, or was it yesterday? It was either today or yesterday, and I'm like, "How long have you been dating your girlfriend?" And he's like, "Oh, like 2 years." And I'm like, "Okay, like, time to get on that." Like, pointing at my ring, and he's like, "No, like, that's crazy." And I'm like, "Why is it crazy?" He's
because
like, we're not ready for that. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm not ready for that level of commitment. I'm like, you've been dating for 2 years. And he's like, yeah, but marriage is different. And I'm like, well,
it's true.
It's different only because there's a lot more responsibility. And if things go wrong, of course, then you have a lot more to be held liable for.
Yeah, actually, Tim Pool made a really good point about that. Said that basically, if you dated for, like, you know, however long you wanted, like, there's really no downside legally. Like you can just break up and, like, you really have no consequences, like, financially, legally, the whole thing. You're like, oh, okay, you just broke up. Where the second you get married, you are now suddenly on the hook. Basically, like, you stand to lose, like, so many things and all that. So I get the argument. I think that I can see why people are saying it's basically like the entire system is rigged against men, which is why I understand why a lot of men are very hesitant to get married. But yeah, it's difficult to be a traditional man in these days because women are basically told to be encouraged and told to, like, yeah, you should definitely be a horrible person, and the world will cheer you for it.
The world will cheer you and encourage you and do all these terrible. And so, briefly, give us your...
Oh no! So that was a long Steven intro.
That was like a little bit about red pill marriage. So
my weekend was lovely. I played some board games and got to see my mama. So that was fun.
That is good.
That's good. But let's get into some stories here, man.
Yes, indeed we shall.
Indeed.
So we'll start off with some kind of interesting, lighthearted stories. So from not me to start off. Miss Universe Zimbabwe is a white woman, and the internet is having a totally normal reaction.
That should tell you a lot.
Great stuff. I don't care what race you are, Miss Universe Zimbabwe. That's in Africa. Y'all is a white woman, and the internet is not happy. Well, at least half the internet is always crying about something. They're mad.
They're
so Miss
mad.
Universe pageant in Zimbabwe is sparking widespread debate on social media after awarding its top honor to a white model, Brooke Jackson, will represent Zimbabwe at the International Miss Universe competition in November. So this is the crowning moment.
Miss Universe Zimbabwe 2023 to represent us in El Salvador. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make some noise for contestant number 12.
Oh, here we go. She's losing it. There she goes. That's one happy lady.
Yep. Well, good for her.
I mean,
so she is a Zimbabwe native, and while she doesn't look the part, she is now represented for Zimbabwe in this year's Miss Universe competition.
Good for her.
She's beautiful, and of course, so are all the other candidates. This is, of course, better than the was it the Netherlands?
Yeah, where they got a trans.
They
like
did a man.
They basically got a fake woman to go in and
So,
take care of them.
but that's really got the internet upset because is the fact that she's white. Because apparently you can't be white and win an award in Zimbabwe. Here are the best reactions from the internet. Mugabe would be so mad.
Who's Mugabe?
Mugabe was a dictator from Zimbabwe.
Oh, really?
And I think he actually did like advocate for like some form of ethnic cleansing.
He's like, no, not in my country, never.
Yeah, from Chase. You know, for me, it's the fact that white people are not even embarrassed or ashamed to be doing all these. It's not like she's British and she came to win Miss Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
She's a native Zimbabwean. From unknown, is this a joke? Honestly, I'm not condemning her. I'm just a bit surprised. Had to research and notice that the country is a nation of immigrants. So is every nation.
Yeah, you think? Every country has immigrants.
From Samanyanga. What exactly do you look for when judging? Because, no. Dang, that's racist.
I know, that's like automatically like, well, her skin color basically makes her undoable. So
from Caston Love, nice to see Rhodesia back in the news.
Oh boy.
I hope that guy. Oh.
You get it? You get it?
Oh no, Conquerworm is saying I forget the user on Twitch.
Oh, the one that claims the Bible teaches lying is okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because that was Kissing Gonzo.
That's right. That's right.
So Kissing Gonzo, if you're here, just let yourself be known.
Yep.
We've been waiting. So Rhodesia being the former British colony there in Zimbabwe, the white Jesus lovers. White supremacy, it's from the activists. White supremacy is a worldwide nasty business. Apparently the big business of lies and deception are simply too deep and depraved here. Is this real? Orwell was so right. Are you joking?
No, look at the one underneath that, like the one from End Wokeness.
Spot the difference. My ancestors rolling in their graves. White woman wins 2023 Miss Universe Zimbabwe over melanated candidates. And first black woman crowned Miss Ireland history making win. Yep.
Yeah. It's like right there. That's the perfect example of the insanity of the complete double standard. Like it's wow, that one kind of nailed it right there.
Yeah, it did.
Because you know that nobody has a problem. Like the most racist people on the planet are the progressive lunatic leftists. Yep. Like they're
nobody.
Did you hear about the story that this week was it the Chiefs? No, the Redskins. There was a native group. A native group is suing the Redskins.
Well, now the Commanders.
Yeah, now the Commanders. They're suing somebody big because he basically said like, "Oh, their organization doesn't exist." He's like, "Is that so?" And all that. Yeah. And the whole idea is like,
well, no, the Redskins, like the image for the Washington Redskins was honoring. I forget the name of the chief.
Very important.
But it was honoring, and they were like, this organization was actually kind of peeved because when they changed it from the Redskins to the Washington football team to the Commanders, they got rid of that logo. And they're like, well, in trying to be kind of tolerant and accepting, then you got rid of a Native American hero and icon that they were honoring via that logo.
That's right.
So, just a bit of cultural quashing in the name of wokeness.
Oh, it's just terrible.
But other things that are just terrible. Britney Spears seen with bandage, apparent cut after dancing with knives in concerning video.
Oh yeah, remember like years ago when there was like that.
I was actually talking. I was talking about Britney Spears today with my coworkers. We didn't know anything about this.
How did that come up?
Well, no, because we were talking about like crazy, weird television. And, like, things like Disney stars gone bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about, like, Miley Cyrus, and we were talking about, like, Britney Spears and how she had, like, the good girl look, and then she went absolutely crazy, and so did Lindsay Lohan, and so did Amanda Bynes.
There's only two childhood stars, like, that were on TV shows that I actually believe, like, somehow dodged that entire, like, thing. Like that they were famous when they were kids. and then became like horrible people when they grow up. Two people who dodged that: Hillary Duff and DJ Tanner or Candace Cameron Bure. You know that you know the key there. You know the thing that sets them apart. The one thing that they both have in common:
they married Christian dudes.
Married Christian dudes. Should tell you a lot about why they somehow survived that meat grinder.
And like it was actually because Hillary Duff married the Nash. Oh, I forget he was
Cameron Bure. She married Pablo Bure's brother. Yeah, that's what she married.
But so did Hillary Duff.
What?
Hillary Duff married a hockey player.
What?
I know. Oh no, she briefly married a hockey player, Mike Comrie, from 2010 to 2016.
I did not know that. Okay.
And then she divorced, and then she remarried a guy named Matthew Coma.
What's his last name? Coma.
Coma. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
But I knew of her when she was married to. Yes, Christian ethics is the core of our beliefs, but in terms of political ideology, we're both conservative. So
yeah, right wing.
Good place to start.
Yeah, that works.
Anyway, so from this interesting little tidbit, so Britney Spears appears to have sustained several cuts on her body after she danced with knives. In another clip of her dancing, which was shared on Instagram, the pop star had a white bandage wrapped around her arm. She showcased an apparent cut on her thigh as she danced around in a polka dot crop top and a pair of white bikini bottoms. Oh my goodness, pretty woman top, kind of cool after my briefing with polka dots.
By the way, this woman is like I can't help but feel sorry for her.
Yep.
She has had a history of
really troubling mental episodes.
Bizarre behavior like that. There's a reason why she was put on what was that, like some kind of a arrangement where her dad was in charge of her finances. But that's because of her like totally erratic and crazy behavior before the fan base basically got involved, but like, hey, we know better than everybody else. I'm like, you sure about that? And yeah, it's like there's a video though. Can you play the video?
I will certainly try.
Do it, man. Do it.
Okay. Okay, this is her just dance. Does she pick up the knives later?
Mm-hmm. How long? Oh, it's only 30 seconds. I know people have had pictures and screenshots of her with the knives and all that. I don't know. Did she grab the knives at some point?
Not in that video.
Oh, maybe they don't show in that video. Not in that video. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe because page 6 probably didn't want to have.
Yeah, that kind of. I mean, if you scroll down, you can see her with.
Oh yeah, you can see her with the knives.
Yeah, there she is.
There.
It's insane.
What the heck?
Yeah. She's dancing with.
They are not real, but then she has cuts. So
yeah,
it's definitely not real.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like Britney Spears is one of the most tragic stories of Hollywood, imaginable. Like, she's just like and it's sad because she's never been able to come back, and every time you see her, she's just like something new, something crazy. I don't know. There's like a whole history. If you want to like look it up on like any social media platform, you'll find so many crazy, bizarre videos of her. So our hearts and prayers are with Britney because this woman is like literally like two short brick of a full load. Like I feel really bad for her. So that's Britney Spears. But maybe we can go into the crazy story of something I never actually thought I'd hear about. I've heard of this with some other animals, but not with alligators.
Really?
Yes, I know that they have done it in the past, but I was like, I did not expect to see this in the modern day. I'm like, I figured people were smart enough to.
Okay, so daughter of homeless Florida woman eaten by 13-foot alligator Breonna Doris reveals the moment she found out she was dead. Or her mother was dead after praying it wasn't her mom. Sabrina Peckham was eaten by an alligator after being dragged into the canal. Her daughter announced the news of her mother's passing on social media. So, yeah, so she was found in the jaws of an alligator after she was dragged by the 13-foot beast into the canal last Friday in Largo, Clearwater. Several local residents spotted the gruesome sight as the alligator dragged Peckham away and began to record the scene while alerting the Largo Fire Department. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm like, okay, like, what are you gonna? It's not like, oh, like somebody's being attacked. instead of filming, I should intervene. It's like they're being attacked by a giant alligator. Yeah, you're done. I'm sorry, you're done. I can't help you. I just can't. It's really kind of crazy. Would you like to address that, Daddy?
What? About the crazy lady who got eaten by
Oh, no. Oh, no, you did. So.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
There's
a
video,
like,
though.
I actually have... Oh, there is? Oh.
Yeah, there is. Like
right.
the
daughter. I'll show the video and then I'll kind of give
I was waiting for you to put
cents.
the video on. I was like, that was crazy. Yeah.
So this is the video. This is more of the video of like her honoring her mom.
The emotion comes in waves, and I think that.
Yeah. There's a video of the interview with her.
Okay.
I prayed. I hope it's not her. I hope it's not her. Later that evening, law enforcement arrived at my door and pretty much told me that it was her and she was gone.
Brianna Doris tells me her mom struggled with homelessness and lived near where the incident happened. She described her as kind and selfless.
It didn't matter that she was homeless. She was nice to everybody.
But support is flooding in.
That was your mom?
Yeah.
Oh, we're so sorry,
baby.
so
sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
With a memorial in her honor.
I appreciate this more than you guys know.
Shown love even from people she never knew. Now the family is fundraising for funeral expenses and planning a balloon release to remember her life.
My mother was not cared about by many, but to know that in times like this where we need our little community, that people are coming out, showing their support, donating, praying, sending kind words, it's all that I could ask for in a time like this, honestly.
Yeah, it's
crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
What were you gonna say about though? What was your take?
Well, no, because I was having a take on this interaction with kind of Brodiomonia. I don't know. Is it Budiomonia? Because it's the leet speak. No, like something that I often refer to in regards to this is I kind of go back to the thermodynamics argument. It's like, okay, well, there's two basic laws of thermodynamics. And there is the first law, that nothing can be... Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. And then the second law, which is basically everything is moving towards a pattern of entropy. And with the first law, you have the idea of the formation of the universe and the expansion of the universe happening in one instance with the Big Bang. And if all matter and energy are comprised within a small space within the Big Bang, in order to have that expansion of the universe and the massive explosion, and Jojo Ruba put this in a great way, in order to have a Big Bang, you need to have a Big Banger. In order to have the massive expansion of the universe, and like, yes, we do have information, like the universe expanded from one spot and it's continually expanding. Except in order for the inciting incident of the universe to have occurred, you need to have an outside source of energy outside of the universe that exists.
Yeah.
It cannot explain it that it's like, oh, it just happened by chance. No, it can't.
Yeah, I think what happens though is like, okay, this is the dilemma here. So somebody comes up and says, like, is there any evidence that the Bible, like, what did you say? Like, the Bible is true, or is that Christianity is true? That there's a God?
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing here.
Okay, so here, like, I don't want to get too far off because, like, this is a deep dive. This is the kind of thing that you can. Steven and I have.
We welcome you to come on to Thursday's show, and we can talk about it in the open mic.
Yeah, here's the big thing. He's asking for something that requires like that. There's mountains of evidence. The problem is, that it takes a long time to go through all the evidence, to go through and look for all the articles that explain all this evidence. So the best I can do on a live stream, which is what we're doing right now, without this, not completely detracting from the focus, which is political news, but just kind of to address the actual point is this: there's a lot of evidence that if you are willing to go through it honestly and actually evaluate it properly and actually for its merits, not just instantly dismissive, there's I can list off a couple of places that I would actually recommend. Number one, the like I said before, the resurrection evidence case, like Jeremy said, the case for Christ, the movie and the book, that goes through the historical evidence for the resurrection. People who actually go through it, it cannot be refuted. Christianity, and for people who may not know this, Christianity is the only religion that is falsifiable. How is it falsifiable? If you can prove that the resurrection didn't happen, then Christianity is false.
Yep.
Nobody in history has been able to prove that the resurrection did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people just dismiss it out of hand because these people have not actually looked at the evidence properly. They just dismiss it, but oh, well, that just can't be true. It's like, well, okay, you haven't looked at the evidence, so that's on you. The other one is the fine-tuning argument, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The fine-tuning argument is very simple. It's basically the idea that it's mathematically impossible for the universe to have just been, to have just popped randomly
by random stamp.
It's so mathematically impossible that some of the greatest minds in history, intellect, science, top-notch scientists and philosophers and everything else, they basically abandoned that. They're like, yeah, the mathematical impossibility is so crazy that it can't possibly be random chance. It's just too improbable, right? Fine-tuning. Okay. Third is the cosmological argument. Famously put forward by somebody named William Lane Craig. I recommend go look into a website called Reasonable Faith.
Mm-hmm.
Reasonable Faith. He goes into great detail about the cosmological argument, and basically it has three premises that have to be falsified, which they can't. I go into biological evidence, the biological evidence of irreducible complexity. What's it called? The Discovery Institute goes into that in great detail. And they have a ton of articles going through the evidence that show it. And then there's archaeological evidence as well. There's an insane amount of archaeological evidence that is basically verified and confirmed things that the Bible says all throughout history. So if people are willing to actually examine the evidence honestly, then I welcome it. Go for it. If you feel like there's something missing, go for it. But those are the places I would recommend to start. If you just want to argue and just want to be no, then nothing I can do for you. If you're just going to be just arguing, this isn't the place for it, because this is not a religious talk show where we're basically political. We're a political commentary show. That's what we do. And so if you want to do that, our email is the shrewddudes at gmail.com.
Yep.
You can also message us on Facebook. If you genuinely want to see the evidence, message me or Stephen on Facebook, message us on Twitter, message us on even on Twitch, and we will get a hold of you, and we're happy to send you whatever evidence you may want when we have the time to basically collect it. You cannot find this evidence just on the fly in the live stream. So if that's what you want, that's not going to happen, okay? Because that means that the show basically falls apart. We stop talking about politics. So, all right. So hopefully that answers your question. There's a lot of evidence out there. Happy to show it to you as long as you want us to send it to you. Feel free. But yeah, other than that, let's Stephen, we should go into the into what happened this weekend, because that was a big deal.
Yeah. Anyways, so let's continue onwards. So.
Okay.
Starting off with the BBC. So, Canada Speaker Anthony Rota resigns after Nazi in Parliament Row. Speaker of Canada's House of Commons has resigned after inviting a Ukrainian man who fought for a Nazi unit's parliament and praising him. After first resisting calls to step down, Anthony Rota quit on Tuesday after meeting party leaders in Ottawa. I must step down as your speaker. I reiterate my profound regret. Yaroslav Hunka got a standing ovation after Mr. Rota called him a hero during a Friday visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Mr. Rota said he did not know of Mr. Hunka's Nazi ties and made the mistake of inviting him to attend the event. And Justin Trudeau said on Monday it was extremely upsetting that this happened. This is something deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada, by extension to all Canadians, he told reporters. So, let's watch this little video.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today.
That moment right there should have been like, wait,
I think
fought
somebody
against the Russians in World War, and he's looking at it and he's like,
yeah,
wait.
I think the pleb kind of showed a moment where somebody did a slow motion where he showed his eyebrow. Look at his eyebrow when he says this.
The Ukrainian independence against the Russians.
He's like,
here goes the eyebrow.
He's like, wait, what?
What? It suddenly dawns on him.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
I want to apologize for what happened.
This poor guy.
And really tell you that the intention was not to embarrass this house. My sincere apologies to the house.
It is not... Yeah, this is not his fault. This guy was vetted before he introduced him. He was vetted by the PMO's office. At least that was what was claimed. Every person who is invited to be like honored and featured by the House of Commons has to be vetted by the Prime Minister's office. And so I don't know if they just ignored it, hoping that people wouldn't notice, or if they purposely just like didn't look into it thoroughly, and it's just like, oh, he supports the Ukrainian war? All right, then he's good enough. Which is probably more of the case considering what they've done in the past few years, is that they have been a lot more allowing in terms of, oh, well, they support the Ukrainian war, so we'll support them no matter what. And as we'll feature by what Danny's going to be going over in a few minutes, they've allowed some pretty horrific people and horrific causes to be amplified by the current Canadian government, current Canadian regime, because they have advocated for the Ukrainian position, even though the Ukrainian position is questionable at best.
Yeah, I think here, like, I can you go to the next post, the X post?
Yes.
This is parody, by the way. This is like a parody somebody made about this event, but it basically shows what actually happened. I mean, it's making fun of it, but this is actually what happened after everything came out. People were like, "Yep, this is basically what you did." So this is he may as well have been saying this when this video shows it really, really well. So yeah, take it away.
We have here in the chamber today a literal Nazi.
Yep.
His name is Yaroslav Hunka, a Waffen SS soldier who pledged allegiance to Hitler, fought against our allies in the Soviet Union, and was complicit in the Holocaust. This man's a criminal.
This man's a criminal.
Not a great look for us.
I'm loving that video.
Isn't that great?
Give it a good old like. That's fantastic.
That's well done.
That's well done.
That's essentially what happened. Was basically they screwed up. They screwed up hard, and they basically they admitted it afterwards. And of course, yeah, from Rebel News, basically they basically showed that what they've done is that everyone admits that they screwed up. Now, here, what are the implications of this mistake? The implications are, number one, the Russian government. One of the justifications of the Russian government for attacking and invading Ukraine was, Stephen, what was their justification early on? They're trying to rescue Ukraine from the Nazi problem because they have a really bad Nazi problem, and so it looks really bad when you have not only the Canadian Parliament, but you have Zelensky right there, standing next to Trudeau. And when this guy is announced and being held up as like, oh, look at this guy, they called him not only a Ukrainian hero, they also called him a Canadian hero. And Parliament stood up, applauded like crazy several times. That is gold. That is basically they've basically given the Russian government all of the ammunition they need to basically say by the way, Zelensky is pro-Nazi, because during that whole applause, Zelensky was actually standing there with a fist in the air. He was like holding up a fist, being like, for a Nazi. And so I'm like, yeah, that is incredible. That it's a massive international embarrassment. And I mean, everyone was talking about it all over the place, from the United States. I think every major podcaster or conservative personality or TV show was talking about it, because that's how big of a deal it was. So a little bit of quick background on and again, this stuff wasn't hidden, but this was out there. So I don't know if you can go to that story, that Spirit Corpse. So this actually was already out there. This is from October 30th, 2020, by a guy named David Pugliese. Ezra Levant, who is, I think he has a history of being Jewish.
Yep.
He basically talked. Yeah, he's the one who talked about this guy. And so basically what it goes into, it talks about the Ukrainian group that was implicated in this whole thing. So a couple of things. The group was called the Waffen SS. Okay, yep. SS, of course, if anyone doesn't know, they're the stormtroopers. Okay, the SS is like the more militant and particularly the more ideological of the German military group. So there are army corps in the German army during World War II that were primarily just army corps. They were just groups of army, and they had no SS designation. But so you could actually be a German soldier in World War II and not be a Nazi in the sense of like you're actually associated with like the worst of the party. But being part of an SS regiment, first of all, it's volunteer. So like anybody who says that, he had no choice, he's Ukrainian, I'm like, no. You have to volunteer for it. Number one. Number two, they have to make an oath of allegiance to Hitler, and these are the ones that actually are like Jew hunters, and the ones that committed some of the worst atrocities in the war, which a lot of people have pointed out. This specific regiment has is known to have done. We don't know specifically if he himself did any of these things, but it definitely was done. What happened was this regiment, after World War II, they changed their name to the Ukrainian Canadian, to the Ukrainian, to a different name that didn't sound like like an SS troop, in order to get into Canada. They basically changed their name in order to avoid to be accepted into Canada as refugees. And this man, who's part of this SS regiment, basically lived like under the radar for a long time, hoping to avoid the the Mossad agents from Israel from hunting him and his friends out. Okay. Now the thing is, this was not a difficult thing for anybody to find. This was out there in the news. This was already out there. And the problem is that even if you just think about it very simply, they said in the actual announcement at Parliament, he's like, he fought against the Russians. It's like, if you just take a second, this is why it was so quick for him. It's like, who fought against the Russians from World War II? The Germans. I think that's kind of like the key moment where he's like, oh crap, what the heck have I done?
Mm-hmm.
So so this was like a massive international embarrassment. Obviously Poland, one of the countries that found was outraged by this, they've actually demanded or asked the Canadian government to extradite him, because they want him to stand trial for crimes against Canada. As he should, because he's just because you're part of an SS regiment does not mean automatically that you were part of it, but the probabilities are extremely high, because this regiment does have a reputation, and a lot of stories I hear that sounds like they did do some atrocities, and the chances are high that he was probably part of it. And the fact that he hid his the name of his actual battalion in order to get to Canada shows that he was trying to hide his identity as well. So you don't do that unless you're basically guilty of something. Okay. So let's take a little I want to do a bit of a tour.
Through memory lane.
Little trip through memory lane, and for a reason. Okay,
Mhm.
so for a long time, the Trudeau government has been basically like calling everyone around them. They've been calling them like basically Nazis and all these kind of names. Okay, but let's go through a little bit of the history. So the Trudeau government is basically saying we're not responsible, but they have a bad reputation, so you should not give them the benefit of the doubt. So number one, this is from True North. I just pointed this out in when was this? 2022. Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland met with Ukrainian neo-Nazi party co-founder. So this guy's name was Andrei Perubi.
Andrei Perubi.
And he was the basically the legislative speaker of Ukrainian parliament from 2016 to 2019. And he met with Freeland and Trudeau like several times. But he co-founded the Nazi-style Social National Party of Ukraine, a party focused on racial nationalism that even adopted the Nazi wolf-sangle symbol as its logo. So Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland both met with, took pictures with, and had full-on like conversations with a self-professed Nazi or neo-Nazi. He basically brags about his Nazi beliefs and affiliations. Okay, so already like, oh whoops, we were having a nice meeting with like an actual Nazi apologist. Okay, next one, National Post. Back in 2019, I think this was 20. Oh no, sorry, that was 2019. This one happened more recently. Trudeau toured Kiev alongside controversial Bandera apologist. So Andrei Melnik has incensed Germany, Poland, and Israel in downplaying Second World War massacres by Ukrainian fascists. So he's a Holocaust denier. This is like a well-known Holocaust denier, the kind of thing that people always talk about, like, Holocaust is like the worst of humanity. But he met with them, and he had a very friendly kind of meeting with him. This guy is also, he defends Bandera. Okay, so if people who don't know what Bandera is, it's a far-right Ukrainian revolutionary whose insurgents killed thousands of Jews and Poles during World War II. So this is he defends and openly defends like a very incredibly disgraceful group during World War II that basically killed Jews. So that's another person that Trudeau has been known to get with. Also, Trudeau had another blunder, and I think this was at the Calgary Stampede. You can tell because of his white cowboy hat, which is what he likes to do. Okay, so during the Calgary Stampede a couple of years ago, Trudeau, and of course when Pierre Poilievre was pictured. Remember that story, Stephen? Pierre Poilievre was pictured with a guy arguing for like male male chauvinism or some T-shirt
so.
that something. Yeah, he they basically they crucified him over the coals, like, oh, look at Pierre Poilievre just for taking a picture with somebody that he didn't know and he probably didn't see his shirt. This guy actually had a flag, so this is Trudeau signing, and you see him showing the flag that has both the Iron Cross of the German regiments and the swastika, and Justin Trudeau actually signed that. So that was 2017. He signed a neo-Nazi flag during a pit stop in Alberta. And then he took a picture of it, basically showing, here we go, Trudeau's signing neo-Nazi flags and all that kind of stuff. I don't play into that kind of politics, by the way. I think it's it's ridiculous because you cannot be associated with someone who you were just having a friendly chat with and have a picture with. I don't like that. But the reason I point this out is because Trudeau is guilty of doing this all the time. I was like, oh, you took a picture with somebody we don't like, and so we're going to accuse you of basically being in league with them. So if by that standard, Trudeau is in league with the very same people, okay? So let's go to the next story. This is from True North. Chrystia Freeland caught holding pro-Nazi banner at Ukraine protest, okay? So this one was, where did this take place?
I think this was in Ottawa.
It might have been in Ottawa. So basically what happened was she took a picture with a group of guys or something like that in Toronto, okay? And you can see the flag right there. This is a red and black with yellow wording and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, if you're a Canadian, You don't know what this is.
No
like
idea.
this, like who knows what it is? It's not even like English writing. It's Ukrainian writing.
Yeah, you would.
You probably
If someone like you or I, they'd be like, "Hey, like hold this banner for us," it'd be like, "Yeah, sure, cool. What does it mean?"
Yes.
And then they'd probably tell you. But like Chrystia Freeland, as you and I both know, her family is of Ukrainian heritage.
Her grandfather was a Nazi.
Yes, her grandfather was a Nazi, and she knows how to speak and read Ukrainian.
She knows the history.
There's no excuse for this.
Yep, there's no way she couldn't have known what this thing was about. So, by the way, this little like scarf. Here's what it actually represents. The red and black flag has historically the red and black flag, or like the symbol.
What?
What's going on? Sure, mic not working?
Conqueror, is something going on with my mic? As far as I can tell, my mic is working.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Here, stop.
As far as I know, my mic is working.
Yeah, I can hear you. Maybe it's just low.
Sounds like I am lost in a cave.
Yeah, just maybe like a little sound off. Okay, while you fix that, Steven, I'm going to tell. So, the red and black flag that she's kind of like alluding to there has historically represented the Bandera movement in Ukraine. Stepan Bandera was a nationalist Ukrainian politician during World War II who was accused of war crimes and leading atrocities against Jewish and Polish people. He's an incredibly polarizing political figure in Ukraine, as some view him as a national hero who fought for Ukrainian independence. Bandera helped create the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, an organization that legacy media reports have described as being far-right extremists who will be characterized as neo-Nazis. So this flag has some very, very like extremely troubling connections to Nazi elements in Ukraine. And by the way, anyone who's looked into it, we know Ukraine has a very, very serious problem with neo-Nazis in their actual ranks and in government. This is not like a quiet, nobody knows about this. This is very, very obvious. So here we go. Trudeau signs a flag. That's a neo-Nazi flag. Freeland poses for the picture. By the way, she deleted this picture and went after reporters who pointed this out for the crime of noticing. Any reporter that basically is like spoke out and tried to point this out, she went right after them. Okay, so after taking that little tour down memory lane, now we can actually go into some of the things that happened since. So this is the response by the new House leader, what's her name? Her name is
not Leslie Lewin. Karina Gould.
No. Karina Gould. Okay, so this is her response. And by the way, yeah, if you watch the Parliament, her responses were so skeevy, so incredibly dishonest. It's like it just makes you angry because you know that they're lying through their teeth and they don't care. They're happy to lie with happy, smiling faces. So here's part of her response to this whole debacle.
Mr. Speaker, as a descendant of Jewish Holocaust survivors, I am personally very hurt by the fact that this chamber recognized this individual. And I am sure that everyone feels the same way in this chamber. The Parliamentary Protective Service had the appropriate screening in place to ensure the security of last Friday's event, and that is what I was referring to, Mr. Speaker. But what I can continue to say is that we all must take this seriously. Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, so what her basic answer was like, oh, whoops, we didn't know. We had no idea what happened. We found out when you did. That was her answer, right? Everyone, somebody asked her, like, how is it you didn't know what was going on here? She's like, oh, whoops, it's all the speaker's fault.
Yeah, she was basically, she was saying, she's like, oh yeah, like the speaker vetted it. It's like, well, no, the speaker doesn't have the authority to vet. The Prime Minister's office does.
Yeah. By the way, can you scroll down and show the picture below that?
Of course.
Oh, where is it? Oh no, sorry, this isn't my. Can't be bought. There's a picture of her posing with this actual guy. She actually took a selfie with him, and of course she deleted it. She took a selfie with this like with the guy that was like highlighted, with the speaker and with this Nazi and all that. Of course, she's deleted it now, so she's kind of guilty of basically highlighting this man, which is like just terrible. Yeah, it should be. Oh, I don't know if it's there. Where is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, I have a picture here. I don't know if you can. I can send it to you or something like that. But yeah, she took a picture with this guy, by the way. So I'm like, everything about this is, and yeah, I'll put it in the chat here. Bam.
Okay. Thank you.
Picture of her with Twitter. Yeah, she actually took a picture with this guy. It's likely that Trudeau and Zelensky may have also taken a picture with this guy. One that probably didn't see the light of day after they found out what actually happened. Based on a lot of the things that we were hearing and all that. But yeah, it sounds like yes. She's definitely like, like this was like gigantic debacle for the government. But here's the important thing. After you can get the picture here, I don't know if you can find it. You got it?
Yes. And
yeah, wait for you to do it, and then we'll move on to the next part.
Sure, I'm just opening it in my other window. There we go.
Put on screen?
With the speaker. Oh, yes, of course. There we are. Speaker,
yeah.
This lady, and the Nazi.
Yeah, the House, the House representative, I guess, for the Liberal Party. Right there, in the picture with him. By the way, like the Liberals love to criticize conservatives for like, you're standing with neo-Nazis. You took a picture with them, and here she is.
Like even right now, they are attacking, and they're like, is Pierre Poilievre going to address like Leslyn Lewis, meaning with Christine Anderson? It's like Christine Anderson wasn't a Nazi.
We'll get to that.
I know.
So here, let's go through some of because by the way. Before we move on, I want to point out one thing. Okay. I want to ask you, does the argument that we didn't know, is that a reasonable excuse? Stephen, I'm going to ask you. Is that a viable, reasonable excuse for what happened? Like, oh, we didn't know, whoops, our bad. It's the speaker's fault. Is that a viable excuse?
No.
I want to get your take.
No.
Okay, why not?
Well, the fact that the whole and I don't blame everyone in the House of Commons equally,
sure.
But at least there should have been somebody when he says, oh yes, like he was fighting for Ukrainian independence against the Russians. At least there should have been someone to be like, wait, he fought in World War II against the Russians, but they were on our side. Like, I know that there's like parliamentary decorum, so to speak, which really doesn't exist because everybody's just shouting over one another. They constantly have to call to order.
Yes, they do.
But somebody should have said something. So, like, loose blame on the MP's presence. Higher level of blame for the Speaker's office.
Sure.
Because he was the one that was reading the thing. And he probably had some knowledge that this was going to happen beforehand. He probably didn't know exactly what was on the page. But of course, the guy was from his riding.
Well, yeah. So here's my take on the whole thing. Okay, you could say that the speaker invited this guy. Probably thought like, oh, he's just a Ukrainian part of. He's a constituent of his riding, and he just thought like, oh, Ukrainian guy wants to come see. Cool. Here's two reasons why I believe that the actual prime minister, like the government, has some responsibility in this. Number one is that their responsibility to do a background screen of everyone that comes in. If they're saying that we didn't know, that means that either A, that the House Speaker has to do his own independent screening of things, which I don't think is true because they haven't even claimed that. It's the Parliament is responsible for doing a proper screening of everyone that comes in, and this is a massive blunder if they screen. And by the way, Karina Gould actually said, "Oh yeah, we screened everyone." Well, you suck at screening, and so if that's true, it shows that you're incompetent. It shows that no political leader of any high profile should ever feel comfortable coming to Canada because your government is incompetent and can't properly screen people. And that means if a major world leader comes, they don't have confidence that you're going to be able to find a potential assassin or a terrorist or somebody like with ulterior motives just waltzing in to Parliament. Because if all it takes is getting an invite, a very casual invite from the House Speaker, and that's a way to bypass the screening process, then you basically demonstrated that Canada cannot be trusted to just properly screen people. And it sounds like that's basically what the position that they're taking is like, whoops, our bad. We suck at screening. I'm like, so right there, responsibility has to be taken on screening, which is a massive problem. Number two is that the House, the Speaker himself didn't do enough, didn't have enough wherewithal to actually do an actual at least a cursory look into. But more importantly, do you think it's possible that any kind of especially a high profile visit like this, that it wasn't scripted, Stephen? You think it's possible that they just kind of winged it? Or do you think it's possible that they had a little script of here's what's going to happen, here's what's going to happen next, here's what's going to happen next? At one point, they looked and be like, oh, the House Speaker is going to introduce this guy and point him out to us and all that. Mm-hmm. Do you think that that's possible that they didn't have a script, that there wasn't some sort of plan of what they were going to do? Do you think it's possible, or do you think that they just winged it? Especially on such a high-profile thing. I think it's so insanely insulting to believe that was just especially with a high profile person like Zelensky, where everyone is watching.
Yeah,
you're telling me that they didn't have some kind of a little script of what was going to happen. That whoops, he just kind of went rogue and did his own thing. I'm like, bull crap. It boggles the mind. Even a basic wedding, they have it planned in a script of what's going to happen. They don't just wing it, especially with something this high profile. So they had a script, they just didn't care. And number two, they were responsible for screening, and they didn't do it. Those two reasons alone, the Prime Minister's office has some responsibility to bear in this, because that was a blunder of theirs, not just the House Speaker. That's my take on it. I don't think that the government should be off the hook on this one, because they're basically responsible for screening people. And they didn't do it. That was their fault.
Yep, it is definitely their fault. Let's continue.
Cool. No pushback. That means I'm right.
Well, no, whether they did it on purpose or whether it happened by accident, it's definitely their fault.
Oh, absolutely, because they're responsible for screening people.
Yeah, they are, 100%.
That's on them. Okay, let's look at some of the examples in the past. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, this is the video.
Another video by Karina Gold.
Karina Gold. Here's what she tried to do. She tried. I couldn't believe that she
strike it from the record.
I couldn't believe they wanted to basically delete this whole incident from the parliamentary record. That means that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, when somebody's looking at the record of what happened on this day, they're going to be like, "Oh, there's a gigantic blank in that place." It was amazing that she tried this. But yeah, take the video what she actually did.
Yeah.
So check this out.
Is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, the recognition made by the Speaker of the House of an individual present in the galleries during the joint address to Parliament by His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky be struck from the appendix of the House of Commons debates of Thursday, September.
You can hear the reaction right there.
No.
And from
no.
Media recording. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yes, the Honour. I guess we have to go to the, we'll ask about unanimous consent, then go to it. All those opposed to the Honourable Ministers moving the motion will please say nay. We don't have
we don't have unanimous consent.
Not even a hesitation at all.
We have another order.
Yeah, they just go on from there. But
yeah, they go on, but it's utterly ridiculous to be like, we made a mistake. I vote that there be unanimous consent that we strike our mistake from the record.
can we delete the footage and just pretend none of this ever happened? And
Yeah.
you know, like, yeah, it
Can
was
we
so
get
so
rid of
disconcerting.
Epstein's flight log? Can we have
Yeah.
unanimous consent to do that?
Yeah. Ugh. It's so skeevy. Like the kind of
So
behavior that they're
skeevy.
doing is just so skeevy. So, just a reminder, the Trudeau Parliament and including Trudeau himself have, man, like their record and their history in Parliament of like their accusing others of what they themselves do. Like this is like here's a couple examples of the Trudeau Liberals basically trying to accuse others of being like either being Nazis or standing with Nazis, and it's just an embarrassment of massive proportions, to say the least. So, first one here is from Brian Lilly. This is Melissa Landsman. She's a Jew, by the way. Keep that in mind if you've never seen this clip. Here's a Jewish lady, who was criticizing the Trudeau Liberals, rightly so, for their mistreatment of the truckers. And look at his response.
So, Mr. Speaker, when did the Prime Minister lose his way? When did it happen?
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastika.
So, Mr.
It cuts off a little early, but
It does.
point comes across. Yes.
Yeah, by the way, if you ever watched that, I'd recommend watching the
entirety of that
saga, because there's a guy from the Conservative bench that he got up and he was pissed. I remember I was like, dang, if there wasn't security in that place, he probably would have walked over and punched him. He probably would have punched him right in the face for that little thing. He basically said, like, how dare you accuse a Jewish member of parliament of, like, not just a Jew, but a Jewish member of parliament, and the very person asked him the question of standing with swastikas. This guy is a pathological liar, and he has no problem calling other people Nazis. And why? Because there was a Nazi flag somewhere in the vicinity of the Freedom in Ottawa when the Freedom convoy was there. By the way, if anybody looked at that whole thing was a setup. It happened in a place where no protesters were. It happened for 5 minutes. It magically found a photographer that happened to be there to take a perfect
at that
picture.
exact moment.
And at that exact moment, and then it disappeared, and suddenly, like, nobody even know. And of course, that person who was holding and carrying that flag went into the actual hotel where the RCMP were staying.
Yeah.
Funny how that works. So, anyways, the Trudeau was like actually had the gall to accuse a Jewish member of parliament of being basically associated with Nazis by saying, like, standing with those who hold swastikas. It's a roundabout way of saying, oh, you basically like you're basically associated with Nazis to a Jewish member. So that's that's a little insanity right there. This is the kind of like tactics that they follow. Another member of his cabinet, who is now the what is she, like the member in charge of like health and wellness or something like that? And this crazy lady who has said this about people who are the truckers, like the people who are supporting the trucker convoy. She said this, which is the most infamous thing ever, and I think till the day she dies, she's going to be known for this comment. Basically, like accusing conservatives of basically, like, doing like Nazi dog whistles. Yeah, I don't know if you can take the video, Steve.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this was Yara Sachs.
How much vitriol do we have to see of honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler, do we need to see by these protesters on social media?
Calling protesters like Nazis. Like, good job, girl. By the way,
it was hilarious. The Freedom Tunes segment
was the
of
best
addressing her, because it was literally, and then she went around to be like a child's birthday party and like honking a squeaky toy. Nazi.
Yeah. A Canadian goose, like, honk, Nazi.
And then finally, Justin Trudeau, we will take away their bank accounts and take away all their freedom. And she's like,
he just walks away like whistling. Nothing to see here. It's all good.
Yeah.
By the way, take the next video. This is one from a lady named Jennifer O'Connell. By the way, like if you're a liberal in the Liberal Party, I hate to say it, but you're basically tantamount. Like you're all the same. Like you're all evil. Like this is like evil behavior for all of them. Here's a Jewish, member of the liberal backbench, and she's basically saying, making the accusation, "Oh, you had the audacity to have a meeting or a conversation with Christine Anderson, who they all just called a Nazi." Without a lick of proof, which you don't need proof, like you can just do it. So here's her remarks to Parliament after it came out that some Conservative members met with Christine Anderson, who is by far a very grassroots hero in Canada for the way that she stood up.
If she thinks there should be consequences or reprimand for members of this House who meet with known Nazis who spread misinformation, disinformation, glorify the Holocaust, who speak against anti-Muslim rhetoric. I'm just curious if she's talking about online hate and privacy of Canadians and regulation. Does she condemn her actions by meeting with a known Nazi in this country who spout anti-Muslim rhetoric?
The Prime Minister has put on blackface so many times. He has degraded black people. He literally put a banana in his pants. And you have the audacity to stand and look at me as a black woman and ask about my meeting with another member of the European Parliament. That is within my job description. I do not have to approve of everything that another member believes in order to have the decency to have meetings with other individuals. Your Prime Minister, this Prime Minister, denigrated black men by putting a banana in his pants. Shame on every member over there that does not chastise them. If this were any other country, he would not be leading, and he would not have the moral authority to lead. He would not have that moral authority.
Yep. Prime Minister Blackface. Oh, sing it, black woman. That lady she's sassy.
Fiery.
She's a sassy lady, sassy black lady. I like her. I like this girl. So, to take on that, okay, go to the CBC article just to kind of tag this together. So the CBC article, not the okay. So this is what the girl's referring to. So, 3 Conservative MPs met with far right. The second you see this kind of language, this article is already morally bankrupt because they're using biased language. Far right German politician will stay in caucus. So Christine Anderson, she's a member of the European Parliament. That means that she's an actual elected member, a legitimate.
She's not German.
Member. And is she German or where's she from?
No, she's not German. As far as I know, she's from. I thought she was Danish.
I think she's actually she's in the German government and she's part of a party there. That's I think Choice for Germany. I think it's the party name.
Oh no, she's German. Okay, I was wrong.
Yep, you're wrong, man. So the liberals basically throw these accusations out. They're like, she's a Nazi. Like I remember when I heard that. Even Polyev, I really dislike Polyev that he actually went along with this kind of garbage because I'm like, there's no evidence. Like you don't have to have evidence. They could just throw it out, but prove it. Okay, what are the anti-Muslim comments that she made? They're critical of Europe's basically policy of mass immigration without a single, with not a care. Mass immigration is destroying countries all over Europe, and her party is one of the only ones that are speaking out about it, and that's what they call anti-Muslim rhetoric. It's a lie. They're all liars. They're all pathological liars. They're evil people. They called her like a Nazi, and the entire media ran with it. Just for meeting with a member of the European Parliament, but she's a Nazi. How do you know she's a Nazi? Because we said so. That's not proof. Doesn't matter. We can just throw out labels and throw out accusations, and it's totally true because we said it. So it was garbage back then, and this is what the game they played. The media was more than happy to kick up a massive media firestorm over Christine Anderson. So much so that Polyev actually caved and just kind of said I guess she's a Nazi, so we're sorry. And but here you have a legitimate actual like undeniable Nazi in Parliament, and everyone cheered for him, and they're downplaying it. It's like, oh, whoops, I guess it's not a big deal. We're not in any way responsible for anything to do with this kind of thing and all that. It's like a real Nazi, they downplay it. Like fake Nazis, like completely, like, invented boogeymen that are called Nazis. No, that's totally fine, and they will just keep on pretending like they have the high ground. I'm like, you guys are a bunch of, like, I hate to say it, they're a bunch of dicks. Like the way that the incredible double standards that they have, it is horrible. But yeah, so that's basically like the thing.
The overview.
From this point on, nobody in the Trudeau cabinet can ever, without any without a hint of hypocrisy, ever accuse anyone else of standing with, being associated with, or even colluding with Nazis. Because they are
very clear that they're willing to do all of it.
All of them, they're stinking guilty. So yeah, don't ever
let them get away with it.
Yeah, don't let them get away with it. By the way, Trudeau, you would think that you would think that this next video would be the biggest blunder from this weekend, but it wasn't. But he was still really, really good. This is a video of Trudeau after Zelensky came. He gave a little speech to his rousing supporters that the internet kind of went and like, no, this is like the video that from before the CBC article.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You know which one I'm talking about, right? Yeah, the Viva Fry. So this is a video of Trudeau, like addressing, his people and his people. It's very. Wow.
I can't understand him, but I'm sure it's very bad.
I mean, he makes some good points. It's very. I mean, the faces that they captured on this video was so bad. but so somebody else actually captured the actual thing. But I actually like this version a little better because as much as I hate listening to him, this actually made me jump with it.
Of right or wrong. Canadians know that yes, it is incredibly hard.
Full screen.
Ukraine to continue to stand against Russian aggression. And let's be honest, it's hard for the democracies around the world who are there to support their citizens, who are investing for the future.
Yep.
Oh, that boy has some fiery rhetoric. All he's missing is like the remember the guards standing behind him with that dark blood red like background, like President or former Vice President Joe Biden. Remember that whole incident that he did? You remember that?
No. Yes, of course. That was the State of the Union, wasn't it?
The infamous.
No, it was a speech. Oh, I forget what the speech was.
Yeah, it was bad though. Everyone was like if there was ever a speech that had like incredibly like Hitler vibes or Stalin vibes, that was the speech right there. But Trudeau basically had that moment this weekend. He basically he talked with such incredible intensity, almost like to the point of like almost like angrily yelling. He may as well have been pounding the podium a couple times, and doing like the Nazi salute a couple times, and it would have been right at home. Like the guy's unhinged.
Oh yeah,
and we may actually have a hint as to why he's a little bit
unhinged.
Why he might be so unhinged. People actually joked about this, but apparently there's something.
Apparently there is an article from India.
Yep.
So Trudeau's plane may have been full of cocaine during G20 summit from former Indian diplomat. When Justin Trudeau came to India for the G20 this month, his plane was full of cocaine. Former Indian diplomat has claimed that it was a credible rumor that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's plane at the recent G20 meeting was full of cocaine. Deepak Vorao, former Indian ambassador to Sudan, made the claim on Monday in Indian television, who was saying the Canadian leader has definitely gone insane. He did not come out of his room for 2 days. He claimed that police dogs had discovered cocaine on Trudeau's plane during a G20 summit earlier this month. My wife saw him at the Delhi airport and said that Trudeau looked depressed and stressed. We don't know the reason. I don't know the reality, but social media has some credible rumors suggest that it was a plane full of cocaine. He's become lonely. He's now trying to show that he's a Canadian Rambo and nothing can go wrong in his presence. India has done the right thing by suspending visa services in Canada. In a statement to the outlet, the Prime Minister's office denied the allegation. This is absolutely false and a troubling example of how disinformation can make its way into media reporting.
We cannot be criticized.
Yeah. Vora also criticized Trudeau for his recent speech he gave in the House of Commons. In his parliamentary address, he used the words credible allegations against India. How can allegations be credible? Either they can be credible or an allegation. I can also have a credible rumor that I'm making this case that Trudeau is crazy. It's a credible rumor.
It's very credible. By the way, anybody who remembers that trip, like his remember how his plane was broken or something like that, needed repairs and all that? Do you remember, Stephen, what they offered him? What did they offer the Indian government to Trudeau when his plane broke down?
Sure.
What was the offer? They offered to provide their own plane to fly him back to Canada. And Trudeau refused. He was like, nope, we don't need your stinking plane. We are Canadians. We'll just wait around until our plane is fixed before we get back. Now, think about this, and I want you to think, is this plausible? Is it possible that Trudeau was basically like too out of it, and they used the excuse like, oh, the plane is broken, or like, these repairs, as a way of like a way of explaining why he stayed several extra days in India? That's a plausible theory, and I remember somebody pulled it out, and I'm like, that's actually not crazy. It's a plausible idea, that because politicians, world leaders, people who are important, they use cover stories all the time. Do you remember that story? Okay, do you remember like the Dark Knight?
Mm-hmm.
With the one with the Joker, and they came up with that excuse of like, well, what's your alibi for heading off to China to get that one guy? He's like, he put that story in the paper. It's like billionaire, goes on a cruise with like all the entire Russian ballet. That was his like cover story, essentially. I would not be shocked if all of that was in some way kind of like, connected. Because I would not in any way, it would not shock me if it turns out that Trudeau is actually like, a cocaine bro. Because this guy has no morals. He's got no moral compass. He believes that he is far above the law, and it does not. It would not surprise me if he actually was.
Well, we do know that Obama. Obama did have.
He did cocaine.
He did admit that in his memoirs that
and
he did
people
cocaine when he was a United States senator.
And there was the guy who they interviewed, who knew Obama, or like, he had okay. So it's something that it's not surprising to me, but this sounds like it comes from a little more credible source, which is the Indian government, or at least the Indian authorities or something like that. So I'm like, that's a little more credible than just somebody somewhere say like, a friend of a friend told me this. I'm like, that's a little more credible, because they're actually saying that like, like bombs or drug sniffing dogs smell something in his plane. I'm like, yep, that sounds more credible than that. And of course, in the final story about Trudeau, ending this entire saga of the worst prime minister in human history. Not even just Canadian prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is the worst prime minister ever in all of. Like I don't know.
Like it's like the past few years. There's a lot of prime ministers that would give him I would say
Dan Andrews in Australia.
I would say Jacinda Ardern probably takes the cake
in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like she's a tyrant, but she also, you have to remember, she's a tyrant. But she I have not seen anywhere near the number of blunders that this guy has done. Yeah, it's a whole package. It's a whole package. She's an authoritarian. So was Dan Andrews.
She has in her actions against COVID were worse.
Yes, they were.
Yes, she's not as corrupt as Trudeau is.
She's not as corrupt as Trudeau. She's not. She hasn't had as many international embarrassments as Trudeau. She's nowhere near as disrespected as Trudeau, on the world stage, particularly by other world leaders. And she didn't have like the big crackdown like he had with the trucker convoy. Like that was an international embarrassment. So like altogether, I think a very strong case can be made for that. So last story about Trudeau.
Yep.
Again from the Post Millennial. Muslim Association of Canada demands Trudeau apologize for demonizing Parents' Rights March attendees. That is a big organization, by the way. That is not a local little chapter. This is like the one that represents Muslims across. I mean, remember that comment by that liberal backbencher? She was like oh, you're meeting with somebody who has anti-Muslim rhetoric, while your own prime minister has anti-Muslim rhetoric.
Yeah.
So here's what tell us what they said.
Okay, so the statement from the Muslim Association of Canada on statements by Canadian leaders and school boards on recent protests. So the Muslim Association of Canada strongly condemns remarks on recent protests made by certain politicians, including our Prime Minister, as well as statements from school boards, unions, and reports from some media outlets. By characterizing the peaceful protest and thousands of concerned parents as hateful, Canadian leaders and school boards are setting a dangerous precedent of using their position of influence to unjustly demonize families and alienate countless students.
Yeah,
on September 20th, thousands of Muslims joined by other faith-based groups protested to raise their concerns, calling for their rights as parents in relation to their children's education. Their intent was to be heard, not to sow division. Parents should have the absolute right to advocate for the well-being of their children.
Yeah. Everything that the government, the unions, all these talking heads from the left, everything that they did is dangerous. It's not just wrong, not just incorrect. It's dangerous because by telling people that these people are horrible, hateful, that they're scapegoats or boogeymen, you're basically legitimizing not only hate towards them, you're also legitimizing violence, and you're actually like only creating an environment where you're basically like stirring the hornet's nest. These are very irresponsible statements by everybody altogether. So yeah, they're right. So altogether, this week was a giant dumpster fire for the Prime Minister, the government of Canada, and for Canada as a whole. It's a massive
Just adds on to the dumpster fire that is our crazy nation.
Yeah, so that's Canada for you. We remain embarrassed crazy, and of course that flag behind Stephen remains upside down for this reason.
Yep.
Until that man leaves, man.
This and so many others.
All right. Well, let's move out of Canada. Okay, so now we've covered the Canadian, circus.
Let's talk about other things.
Yeah.
So from Fox 2 Now, a Batman researcher. I didn't know that existed. Said gay.
The superhero,
yes,
or the guy who studies bats.
Superhero.
Oh, really? That research
said gay in a talk to schools when asked to censor himself, he quit. So Mark saw that no one was supposed to talk to kids about the secret co-creator of Batman with the aim of inspiring young students in suburban Atlanta's Forsyth County. Then the school district told him to cut a key point in his presentation that the artist he helps rescue from obscurity had a gay son. Rather than acquiesce, he canceled the last of his talks. We're long past the point where we should be policing people talking about who they love, he said in a telephone interview. And that's what I'm hoping will happen in this community. So this is so ridiculous. What is the point? Like, this isn't, he isn't talking about the artist.
Nope.
He simply is just like, this artist who helped secretly co-create Batman, you know what? He had a gay son, and that's really important, and we should talk about that gay son. It's like, no. Like, this is not what you were asked to talk about. You're asking to censor me. Mm-hmm. No, we're literally just asking you to stay focused on topic. And this is what a lot of these bills and a lot of these instructions for school teachers are trying to do. They're like, okay, no, stop talking about your sexual lives. Stop trying to indoctrinate kids. Stop trying to bring in these gay porn books. Stop trying to bring in these overtly sexualized materials. Or bring in drag queens to school.
These people are perverts, Stephen. They're perverts.
Oh, yeah, they are. Like, stop trying to push this stuff on kids. That's what the march was about.
Yeah.
Stop trying to bring this ideology. Stop trying to bring this perversion. Stop trying to push this on children, because children are still in a developmental stage, and those in a developmental stage are more easily convinced and coerced and brainwashed.
Yeah. People who insist. They have like a weird, almost like a bizarre insistence on talking to underage kids. And when I say kids, I'm talking about kids who are before puberty. These are like 12 and under. Anybody who has an unhealthy need and desire to talk to underage children, like prepubescent children, about sex, is either a pervert or they're a predator. One of those two things. The fact that like these people like feel like insist like I have to talk to children about sex. I'm like, yeah, that's incredibly suspicious, man. Like seriously, I would say that to anyone's face. Why are you so adamant on talking to prepubescent children about sex? That is super creepy, and you should never ever insist on it. The fact that he's insisting that this has to be done shows that he has bought into the idea that we have to sexualize children for the sake of the whole tyranny of the minority. This is what these people have bought into. The whole ideology that says we have to like expose children, and very clearly the word expose is important. We have to expose children to highly sexualized content and conversations and talk in order to recruit them into the queer community. That's their goal. It's recruitment. It's not tolerance. It's not promoting oh, it's about love and all. It's about recruitment. You're trying to recruit children and this is like what sexual predators do. They basically normalize what is odd and weird to children in order to get them slowly, acclimatized so that they're easier to abuse. So yeah, any person who insists on that, I'm sorry, that person really needs to be flagged.
Yep.
That is not normal behavior, and it should never be normalized.
Yeah, no. Any of this conversation with children.
Dang, these people.
I'm just so tired of it.
Anti-Americanism is thriving up north. I actually am very pro-America. Actually,
no. He's not talking about us.
What's he talking about us? What's he talking about?
Because he was saying like corn pop. He was like, yes, Canada's fallen apart, but we can make Canada the 51st state great again. And I'm like, no, not Canada, just not Alberta. The rest hates the U.S.
That's true. That is true.
Yes, like Alberta, the sentiment of Alberta is a lot like Alberta and Saskatchewan and some of the other prairie provinces. They are aligned more similarly with American conservative values.
They are, yeah.
Like even our premier, when she was asked, she's like, oh, like what leaders inspire you or leaders do you look up to? And she's like, oh, like she's like, I look up to Ron DeSantis down in the United States for how I can properly lead my province to greatness, just like he did.
Oh yeah, Kristi Noem
and some other ones. Yeah, and there were the liberal media up here in Canada went after her hard for that.
Of course, because they demonize anybody. They're a cult
with actually a smidge of proper conservative values.
It's a cult. It's a cult, Stephen.
It is a cult. It's a cult.
I like to point it out. And a cult basically like demonizes and hates and punishes wrongthink. Anybody who does not agree with the cult talking points, you're ostracized and you're punished with bullying behavior. That's a cult. That's basically the definition of a cult. You cannot speak against fearless leader. Leader all knows all. I'm like, okay, yeah, cult. But yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. The idea, I think Canada would be an amazing like it would be the Texas of the North, I think, because of oil, right? Like like oil reserves like crazy here.
Oh no, I was chuckling. I'm chuckling because so I'm trying to add more tags so that people can find our content if they want to learn about various things. And so I'm like tagging extra content. So I'm tagging stuff like Batman, and then I was like, oh, the next topic is going to be about racism. I can't put a tag of racism into the Twitch thing, but I was like, okay, racism? No. Racist? No.
Hashtag
race baiter? And then it allowed me put race baiter, and I was like, ha, in your face, Twitch.
That works. I think that's a good point. Got to find the right terms. All right, well, let's talk about Ibram Kendi. Let's talk about that.
I'm not calling him Ibram X Kendi because that's not his name.
What's his name? I actually don't know that. I just heard.
So yeah, Ibram X Kendi is his fake name.
Oh, so like, is it like a literary name, like the author of Harry Potter books? That's not J.K. Rowling. That's not actually her real name. I remember finding that out. That's her literary name.
but Ibram X Kendi, like his name has nothing. It's not even close to that.
Okay.
He literally has like the whitest name possible.
Bob Smith.
Henry Rogers.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Call him Captain Rogers.
And like it was funny because Matt Walsh was going over like his history, and he basically had like below average grades, but because he was black and because he was a race baiter, he got it.
He got.
And then nobody paid attention because nobody wanted to read a book about race baiting from Henry Rogers.
He got that black privilege.
And so, in the most successful rebrand in American racist history, Henry Rogers became Ibram X. Kendi and sold millions of copies of his racist book.
Was he also trying to borrow from Malcolm X?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's why you get Ibram X. Not
Mhm.
just. Yeah. Okay. Well, so what did Ibram X say?
What did Henry Rogers say? So Henry Rogers and the implosion of DEI in higher education. Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research.
Okay, right there, when you're making a name like that, it's almost like you're trying too hard.
Oh yeah, you're trying way too hard.
We're the Love for Puppies organization. I'm like, you're trying a little too hard on that.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, what's funny is in the past 3 years, because this organization was started right after the death of George Floyd. Do you know how many papers they've done in the past 3 years?
No, I don't know how many.
2. They've raked in $43 million to write 2 papers.
Wow.
But apparently, even after that, they're laying off 40% of its staff as a part of organizational restructuring. Apparently, 15 to 20 of its approximately 45 employees were let go. Testimonies from former employees have exposed alleged mismanagement of Kendi's center, which in turn has exposed the fraudulence and fragility of the diversity, equity, and inclusion complex. No duh. Disgruntled former employees have accused Kendi of mishandling grant funding, failing to complete major projects, and fostering an exploitative company culture in which he ruled with an iron fist, yet was routinely missing. It's raked in $43 million since its inception, yet according to a 2021 budgetary record obtained by the Daily Free Press, it received corporate support from Peloton, Deloitte, Stop and Shop, TJX Companies, and Decker's Outdoor Corporation, according to the 2020-2021 donor report. Only 6 weeks after its launch, then CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, gifted $10 million without conditions.
Dang.
Yep. Your $10 million donation with no strings attached gives us the resources and flexibility to greatly expand our anti-racist work, he posted at the time.
No strings attached.
The endowment is vital as we build our new center.
Yep.
Yep. Well, that's what happens when you got a race grift.
Well, I think it's also funny. Like, have you noticed, like, a lot of these organizations use names that, like, it's almost like they're exposing themselves by using these names that are trying too hard to hide what they're not. Like in Canada, we have the Anti-Hate Network. I'm like, right there, you're like, okay. It's almost like you're trying to hide the fact that you're basically promoting and, like, spreading hate, like his protection. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying too hard. And Antifa. I'm like, yeah, you're trying too hard to hide the fact that you're actually fascists. I'm like, yeah, maybe they'll use. And here they use the organization called, what was it called? The anti-racist research. I'm like, yeah,
because that requires research. Oh, and the best part. I'll find a video. I'll find the video of this because it's absolutely hilarious.
Okay.
Ibram X. Kendi defining racism. It is hilarious.
Video, or is it like a?
It's a video.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen this one. Wouldn't be shocked if I saw something like that. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think it's this one. Okay.
Anarcho-capitalist, libertarian, and don't really see.
Okay, so here.
That'd be interesting.
Is there one that you would offer us? Like, how do you define? I didn't hear your personal definition. Is there one that you would offer us? Like, how do you define racism?
Sure. So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. Anti-racism is pretty simple, using the same terms. Anti-racism is a collection of anti-racist policies leading to racial, anybody want to take a guess? Equity that are substantiated by anti-racist ideas.
I didn't hear your.
Steven, what a joke.
Steven, do you know what a dingle hopper is? A dingle hopper
is a collection of dingle hopping ideas.
A dingle hopper is something like, with dingles that likes to hop, and it's very dingle hoppy in its nature, and it leads oftentimes to anti-dingle hopper tendencies among the dingle hoppers, and it's just, using the word in the definition is the epitome of stupidity. This is why people who try to define woman by using the word woman in the definition, like they don't realize how stupid they sound. It is it people don't realize how that is a dumb answer. It's not a smart answer. It's a nonsensical answer. It's like, what is a woman? Someone who identifies as a woman. Okay, what is a blorgon? It's like, a blorgon is someone who identifies as a blorgon. Okay, you have done nothing to explain to me what a blorgon is. A blorgon is it's the opposite of an anti-blorgon. It's like, what? What that, like, are you speaking English? That is the level of silliness that answer. These people sound smart, but they're not smart people. Like, their answers, like, oh my god, that was a terrible answer. My goodness.
Oh, I know. I heard that. I was like, oh, Danny has not heard this, so it's hilarious.
That's called gobbledygook right there. A bunch of smart. You ever seen that comic of Calvin and Hobbes, where he basically like says, like, like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm writing an essay for a class, and he uses all these like super fancy sounding words that are actually saying nothing. And he's like, higher education. Like, he basically hides the fact that he knows nothing by using very like fancy and like, massive words. Like, yeah, that's basically what the Mr. Rogers there was doing, which is really funny. Oh my goodness. All right, you got any more on this story? You want to take the next one?
No, this one basically just ended up. I thought it was just hilarious, and it was a good feel good story.
Good stuff.
Another feel good story. So Menendez, amazing defense of all those envelopes of cash. I'm Cuban. Senator Bob Menendez is an impossibly hilarious explanation for all those gold bars and cash that police found. So he has an insanely lame excuse for the $480,000 in cash investigators discovered at his home. He and his wife were indicted on federal bribery charges. The indictment accuses Menendez of accepting hundreds of thousands in cash, gold bars, and luxury vehicle and home furnishings. In exchange for the bribes, Menendez, who was chair for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, agreed to use his power to boost 3 New Jersey businessmen and benefit from the government of Egypt, according to the indictment. At a press conference Monday morning, Menendez said the $480,000 investigators discovered in his house were money that he withdrawn in case of an emergency. For 30 years, I've withdrawn hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account, which I have kept for emergencies, Menendez said, making no mention of the gold bars that were also discovered in his house. Menendez said that he was compelled to do so because of his family's history, quote, facing confiscation in Cuba. It's unclear to which family Menendez, who was born in New York City in 1954, a full 5 years before Castro came to power, is referring to. Quote, this may seem old-fashioned, but those monies were drawn from my personal account based on the income I've lawfully derived over those 30 years. His excuse doesn't seem old-fashioned, it just seems like a lie. But it was kind of funny because it was just like, yes, I have this like stockpile under my mattress because I'm Cuban. And the Cuban government is like, so wait, like, you are part of the government. And you think that the government is coming to your government that you are responsible for and that you are a part of is coming to claim your money? That's what you're claiming? Yes, because you're definitely a spokesperson for trust in government.
My goodness.
It's like, this isn't communist Cuba.
The problem here is that
yes, taxation is theft, but
yeah, this guy's been. It sounds very much like this guy, like he pissed off the wrong people in New Jersey, or like the people with power or something like that, and they're going after him. That's what it sounds like, because it's very unlikely that Democrats don't go after their own. They like power. They don't care who has power as long as playing nice with the right team. So it sounds more likely like they're not trying to do like, oh, they're trying to do the right thing and go after like a corrupt politician. It's like, no. It sounds more like he pissed them off somehow and they're weaponizing the system against them, because the last thing they want is to remove somebody who is like, with a big D next to his name. So I'm like, we'll see what happens with this, guys. By the way, shout out to Commie Hunter, because I'm like, how many people do you want to run into that could legitimately believe the fascists are right wing? And I'm just like, do I have to explain this to you again?
Exactly.
What is one of the biggest lies ever told to and university students are just given that as like, oh, that's undeniable. like, no, it's not. Like
Yeah.
National Social
and exactly what he was saying.
Germany,
Like statist and not statist. I just see statist as left, and I see not statist as right. And then the further you go,
big government versus small government.
Exactly.
Essentially. That's a very common, like, way of breaking it down. However, one thing that's interesting, I will say this, is that you and I have seen this, and that a lot of like the conservative right has become this this weird collection of groups that have like some similarities, but they're wide apart. Tim Pool is not a conservative right winger. He's not he's not a social conservative at all. He's very kind of in the middle of politics. He agrees with some things and he's kind of overlaps a little, but he's not a conservative. He's more of a classical liberal. And then you have like Elon Musk, who's kind of like, he's also a little more liberal in sense. You have people who are very like right wing, like Seamus, and you have like Charlie Kirk, who's very right wing, like conservative. And these are all people like grouped together because the way that the left, and by the way, when I say left, I'm not talking about liberals, like as a whole, like like a general liberal in life. That's not a leftist. Leftists are the people who belong to the woke cult. These are people who march with Antifa. These are people who are the militant LGBT activists. These are people who are in leader like the Liberal Party or the Democrat Party in the States who call for the most ridiculous and insane ideas and policies. Those are woke leftists, and they are basically the Borg. I like to call them the Borg because they basically they tolerate no resistance and nobody breaking ranks. They're a cult. Like it's not just that's not just a flippant accusation. That is an actual description of how they operate and how they work. Yeah. Because Stephen and I go to like these leftist or a lot of these leftist protests or counter protests. What is the one thing that they all follow? The rule that they always follow whenever you try to talk to them, Stephen. The rule that rules them all.
Hey, call me Hunter. You actually have aside from the fines, but you have a very similar to Conquerworm. Because Conquerworm, during the COVID lockdowns, he fled down to the United States.
Dang. So, yeah.
A lot of people did. Like we see the United States in comparison to Canada. So the American government has a lot more checks and balances to power.
The Constitution is much better.
Constitution is a much stronger document. The Charter has basically built-in protections for the government to seize power whenever they see fit, and that is deplorable. But we're still holding out a little bit of hope that Alberta has a chance of leaving this horrifying country.
Canada's only hope right now, the only basically light at the end of the tunnel is that it looks like Trudeau's days are numbered.
On his way out, yep.
On his way out, and we're hoping that that's the case. However, this country is so insanely corrupt, and Trudeau is such a power-hungry narcissist that I would not put it past the Liberals and whoever the people are in charge and power to basically try to do some kind of like shenanigans to try to rig the next election. That would not surprise me at all because this guy has no morals. It's all about power to him. So that's the only fear I have. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the only hope for Canada.
Oh, it is
right now. Oh
all right. So let's finish up our last story.
Speaking of last hopes,
ha 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 ha.
That's the last hope for America.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
Either him or your wonderful choice of Ron DeSantis, who's we'll see. I will say maybe Ron DeSantis could win if Trump gets assassinated. That's a viable road for him. I think that's pretty much the only viable. That's the only viable road at this point.
Or just common sense. Donald Trump found liable for fraud. Not gonna happen. Common sense.
You gotta just come to terms with it, man. Like it's Trump. Trump's not gonna lose it. Trump's not gonna lose it.
Trump found liable for fraud in New York civil case. New York judge found Donald Trump and his family business fraudulently inflated the value of his properties and other assets in a major defeat for the former U.S. president that could severely hamper his ability to do business in the state. Scathing decision by Justice Arthur Engoron of New York State and Manhattan make it easier for State Attorney General Letitia James to establish damages at a scheduled October 2nd trial, which is next week. And Goron also ordered the cancellation of certificates that let some of Trump's businesses, including the Trump Organization, operate in New York, and ordered the appointment of a receiver to manage the business's dissolution. The judge described how Trump and his adult sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, the Trump Organization, and other defendants made up valuations and inflated Trump's net worth to suit their business needs. This is a fantasy world, not the real world. The judge also sanctioned the defense lawyers for making preposterous legal arguments and fueling their clients' obstreperous conduct.
That's a big word right there.
Yes,
big
Trump
word.
and his other defendants have argued they never committed fraud and the challenged transactions were profitable. They plan to appeal in Goron's decision. And, of course, Letitia James says she looks forward to presenting the rest of her case at trial.
By the way, my rule of thumb right now, with particularly with people that are already tainted as anti-Trump, fanatics, is I don't believe a word they say until it's proven otherwise. Like this judge and Letitia James and all that, every word that comes out of their mouth is a lie, and prove it otherwise. That's my rule of thumb with these people, because these people have no qualm about like lying, cheating, and downright like doing all sorts of like nasty behavior. They're corrupt. They're corrupt to the top down. So I'm. It sucks because the people in power right now are abusing the system. They're weaponizing, and the Democrats love using. Democrats and the true believers, the people who are bought into the cause of leftism and all that, they have no problem abusing power.
Yep.
Not all. The Republicans suck at that. Like when they have power, they don't use it because like they're Boy Scouts. It's like, oh, but they could use it against us, and sometimes like, well, they will. So what are you gonna do about it? It's like, well, one of those people. Okay, well, you're gonna be crushed by the machine. Well, at least we'll go down with like a moral high standards. Okay,
This is Danny's version of Mitch McConnell.
But yeah. So it's I don't believe a word of it. That's my standard right now with
of the charges.
With it's not the charges. Okay, like the usual. Okay, in a vacuum. Okay, in a vacuum, you when you don't have any more. Like, so if you ask, okay, there's a rich person in a state that was charged with this and all that. Okay, well, I think I should look at the charges. But there's not in a vacuum. We know historically that the Democrats and a lot of their supporters have a tendency to abuse the system, to make up lies, to make up slanderous accusations, to distort the facts, distort the truth, and to abuse the system that they do. So in that environment, what is the most likely thing is that these people are lying. This judge is incredibly biased against Trump. That Letitia James has already proven that she has like a vendetta against Trump and has no problems abusing the system and creating all sorts of like ridiculous things and all that. I'd be surprised if this was like legitimate, like from top to bottom. I really would be. So no, I don't give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't. Until I find out more information, more facts, and more evidence that basically like establishes that like, yeah, Trump is fully responsible. There's no explanation that changes this up. I'm like, no, until I actually see evidence, hard evidence that this is like a legitimate, Trump did wrong, Trump did bad, I won't believe it. I just won't, because it's like the boy who cried wolf. How many times do you have to have these people lie to you before you're willing to say like, yeah, like, these people are pathological liars? We've seen them do it with like the very fine people. People still. Oh, yeah. Did you hear that? There was an interview with like Hillary Clinton with Jem Psaki, and she was still pushing the Russia collusion narrative, the PP tape. She was still talking about that like it's true, and I'm just like, yeah, you can't trust any of these people. Like you can't. So it's the default is they're lying until proven otherwise. That's my default for certain groups. If you're talking about like a state of Nevada with a totally unrelated thing, not related to Trump, then okay, I'll look at that individually. But anything related with Trump has to have a giant asterisk next to it until you verify it.
Yeah, like, and I'm totally fine with, instead of assuming that all indictments are the result of wrongdoing, I'm totally willing to be like, okay, what's the evidence for this claim? What's the evidence for this claim? What's the evidence for this claim? And that's always why, couldn't agree more. Never done anything wrong.
I mean, it depends on what you consider wrong.
Well, in terms of, like, are we talking about in terms of breaking the law? Or are we talking about?
Okay, let's talk about in terms of like doing a anything criminal or deserving of like criminal prosecution. I don't.
Well, he clearly did in Florida, though.
What did he do in Florida?
Like the stuff that's caught on tape. With
you're talking about the confidential documents?
Yes, and like
no,
I've advocated for ages that yes, what he did was wrong, but so was what Biden and Hillary did. All three of them should be in jail.
It's the whole idea of like if you cross the street and you're busted for like jaywalking, but like 10 other people cross the street before you and 10 other people cross the street after you.
Yeah.
It's the idea that if you are not prosecuting the law equally with everybody.
Oh, I agree.
Then no, that's the principle I have there.
Okay, but that's one principle. But you can't say it's like, oh well, the person who's jaywalking didn't jaywalk.
No, I use that as an example. The balance of like that
like
the law has to be
if Biden and Hillary are not being arrested, then Trump shouldn't be arrested for that.
Yeah, well, that's the principle.
Like if they aren't applying the principle of justice evenly, then they shouldn't apply it just solely to Trump. And like, yes, I'm on board that the political persecution and the prosecutorial attacks on Trump are wrong. They totally are, and their focus on trying to nail him, unfortunately, will likely result in, like, unfortunately for Republicans, they will likely result in, it could take him off the ballot in certain states. That's a definite possibility.
But that's not because he deserves to be out the ballot.
No, it's not because he deserves it, but unfortunately, because of the way the system is set up right now, and because of the way that the system, the courts cannot challenge any of this until after the election, and the courts are pretty loosey-goosey about how all this is done in terms of addressing challenges to electoral interference. Like, we saw that with Carrie Lake. Not that I've lost a lot of support for Carrie Lake lately.
Yeah, but that election was fraudulent.
It was. I totally agree with that. And the way that the courts were like, oh, well, you didn't raise it before the election. It's like, well, how could we have known? So,
it's
like,
fraudulent now. Yeah.
There's going to be shenanigans in this election. There's not going to be any way to counter it.
Yeah.
That's one of my key arguments.
Sure.
Against nominating for the general is that like it only takes a little bit.
The one thing I've said, like, and people have said this, and I actually agree with it. One of the best ways to basically protect an election from fraud is to have enough people that vote for one candidate because any kind of cheating can only be done in small amounts or
I get that premise.
You can't make it big scale because then it becomes too easy to expose. Yeah, that's the thing. And so if you have a state that has like a small margin, you can basically fudge the numbers in a small enough way that you won't get caught.
Yeah, I know.
If you have like a massive it's a tidal wave, then that won't matter. All right. So that's something to keep in mind, as far as the future election. However, one thing I want to say, my objection to the idea of Trump being charged with the Florida the documents and all that. Okay. It's not just the fact that it's unequal application of the law. That's not the only. The other thing is that what he did was was supposedly a violation of the Records Act, but they're not charging him for that. They're charging him for something else, which is a novel legal theory.
It is.
You'll notice that a lot of these prosecutions are using novel legal theories. That in itself shows that they're trying to base it's the old Soviet idea of like, you find me the man, I'll find you the crime.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems I have with this new the story that we're addressing today, because that is exactly almost to a T, that is what Letitia James said.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly. I'll see if I can find it. Because Letitia James said in the past, where it was like, I'll find something on Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm totally against that. There should be, like, there's no way that something like that should be ever come out of the mouth of an attorney general.
Yep.
Because that's a directed personal vendetta. And that is something that you should be absolutely free of as an attorney general or as a district attorney.
Yeah, you remember because Viva Fry had a podcast one time with Barnes, Robert. I think it's Robert Barnes, or he's a lawyer, and he's a very, very, very well informed lawyer and all that. And they went through each and one of the 4 charges that were thrown against Trump: the one in Georgia, the one in Florida, the one in D.C., and the one in New York. They went through all of them, and they kind of like analyzed, and he basically like broke them all down. And he basically said, like, every one of these, like some are obviously like more serious and maybe damaging than others, but like, hold on, let me just finish this point. Some are worse than others in terms of like the damages and the likelihood of being prosecuted, but ultimately he said all of these are basically manufactured criminal charges. They're manufactured. They're not legitimate, like that have a long-standing precedent. They're basically trying to create a law in order to pin it on him. And he said, if you're going to say that Trump's a criminal, it's like, imagine like a law that suddenly every single day you can walk across your street and it's fine. And then you find out like, oh, we're here to arrest you. Oh, you crossed the street illegally. Well, that's not against the law. Oh, we just made it against the law. And we saw that you did it yesterday. So we're going to charge you, basically like retroactively for something that you did back when it wasn't illegal. That's basically the argument that Robert Barnes was making. So saying that Trump is like a criminal or he's like guilty of like some kind of crime is like, well, yeah, when you invent crimes and you retroactively find someone guilty of a crime that you just created, then of course you can basically make anyone a criminal. Yeah, essentially. So take us to.
So this is one thing, and then I'll have an interesting little last tidbit.
We cannot use a loophole to evade justice.
Letitia James! New York's new attorney general has big plans.
Let that be a fair warning to all of those in high places who think that they're above the law.
And Letitia James, sworn in on Tuesday,
do solemnly swear,
has made clear that among her biggest targets will be President Trump and his business practices.
I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate
president.
Now
that's
After all,
incredible.
Trump's company is headquartered in New York.
Beautiful.
And so was his 2016 campaign.
What is fueling my soul right now is Trump and his abuses against immigrants, against women, against our environment.
Among the many items that James has said she will look into, Trump's finances and his real estate holdings, including any potential money laundering, which James has said she believes there's evidence Trump has engaged in.
President Trump was almost on the verge of bankruptcy. And then
She basically vowed before she even became Attorney General for the state of New York that she would do this. So that's why I look at this one. I'm like, okay, like that's. I kind of laugh and scuff this one off. It's like, well, Letitia James has been trying to find something to nail Trump on for a very long time.
Oh yeah.
One of the interesting things that I have seen lately, and it's, I look at it. I'm just like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, with all of the cases in Florida and Georgia, in all the people that are co-accused with Trump. So Trump is using, I don't know the exact percentage, but it is the majority of his campaign funds to go towards his legal fees.
Sure.
Yeah. And then not a cent of that is going towards anybody that's co-charged with him.
Okay.
And in a lot of these statements that he's making, especially on Truth Social, he is throwing a lot of these co-defendants under the bus. And then these co-defendants, because he's not, like, they basically have to try and crowdfund their own legal fees, like Jenna Ellis. And Jenna Ellis, thankfully, has been able to raise a significant amount of money. And yeah, like, the only thing that she was guilty of was she was Trump's lawyer. and she was basically, I don't know exactly the length of prison time that she was charged with, and she's like, she made this really like decent post, and I'll actually read out exactly what she said because it was really solid. Because it was just like, yeah, like what they're doing to Trump is unfair, but like him leaving us out to dry is also like, ugh. It's a terrible look.
Okay, so the claim that you're making is that Trump should be taking like a bunch of the campaign funds, the funds that he's been given to help to pay for their...
Trump, I'm not saying that he should be using their campaigns to pay for them, but at least like because they're co-conspirators, or at least they're charged as co-conspirators with Trump, he should have, as soon as they were given, and like he would get a lot more brownie points from, and he wouldn't have nearly as many people or anybody turning on him. Because like a good chunk of those that have been co-charged with him in Florida have turned on him. Like there's basically a new individual that turns on him every week.
Yeah, sounds like very common.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when basically all the people that are co-charged with him, and they're like, oh, like, no, like Trump didn't do anything wrong. And then he's like, no, everything that was wrong was on them. And they're like,
here's the question.
I don't want to go to jail.
Okay, you know, like you. Okay, so the moral question there. Here's a question. Do we know how much it's going to cost to fund all of their legal fees? I mean, how much of Trump's funds do we have that like, you know, is that something that's feasible? First of all, that's the first question.
Well,
is it feasibly within his power to be able to do that and still fight his own like very dangerous...
That's what I'm saying is that I wouldn't say use his campaign fees to pay their legal fees. I would say help with their crowdfunding.
Okay, well, okay, so you're saying crowdfunding. He
should at least like highlight. He's like, oh, like this person and this person and this person are being co-charged with me, and because they stood alongside me, I'm standing alongside them in this, and I want to support them because they had my back, and I'm having their back, and I want you as my supporters to have their back.
Okay, well, that's a fair criticism of. For many of them, I say Jenna. I don't know if Jenna Ellis falls in that crowd. Not because I don't agree with the charges. I think that the charges are bunk. But am I incorrect in that Jenna Ellis, before she was charged, that she had turned on Trump and she was very highly critical of him before like these charges came out?
I'm not entirely certain of when.
I think it was Tim Pool who was pointing that out, and not as a criticism, but he's basically pointing out, yeah, she was highly critical of Trump sometime after like he lost the election, and then suddenly these charges came out, and then she was like reaching out to Trump supporters saying, please send me money to help with my crowdfunding, not long after she had basically turned into one of his biggest vocal critics. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Tim Meadows and a lot of these other ones, they're just kind of like doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But like they didn't necessarily like turn on him.
Like, but they're not doing their own thing, and Trump's still throwing them under the bus.
Yeah, and in those cases, I'm like, sure, okay, maybe there's something there.
Because Trump's argument, like, and we knew this from before, like his big argument was like, oh yeah, like the mainstream media, the establishment, the Democrat political base, they're coming for you. I'm just standing in the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Except now it's become very obvious that Trump is not standing in the way. He will push other people in the way of him when it is politically and criminally convenient for him.
Okay.
Like these people were on his side, and he's like,
well,
you're
most of these people are on this side.
Well, no, like, but the people before they like Jen Ellis turned to support DeSantis. Yes.
No, well, not just that, but she was highly critical of Trump.
Yes.
Before this whole thing came out, so we have to be fair in our characterization.
Yes.
So like most of them,
there are hundreds of co-conspirators that have been labeled with her.
Of course, and you could say the same thing about the January 6th. Or...
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay. No. So how do I put it? This is a very odd situation that we're in. A very complicated, situation. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that part of the thing that we also have to keep in mind is that these charges should never have been laid. We know this. They like sometimes I think conservatives we get caught up in the infighting and we forget them like who are actually the villains in this whole thing. The people who charged these people should not have been charged, period, at all in any way. And let's put it this way: let's say hypothetically, okay, we both agree that none of these charges should have been laid.
Yep.
All of these people should be basically excused from any prosecution.
Yep.
And let's say, hypothetically, if Trump is elected, would it not be fair to assume that if he had he has the power, that he could pardon all of these people in one foul swoop?
If he has the power?
These are federal charges, right? The Georgia?
No.
Which ones are these Georgia?
The only ones that are federal are Jack Smith's. All the other ones are
Florida. Yeah, so Florida and DC. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. That's a weird situation. The problem here is that, I don't like this kind of infighting in the sense that we're losing. Like you talk a lot about we're losing focus. What is the ultimate goal? We have to win the election, and you advocate for Ron DeSantis because you're like, oh, okay, he's more likely to. The general or something like that. That's the usual argument, right? And I'm saying the same thing. I'm like people are just criticizing and jumping on Trump and saying like, oh, he should be either crowdfunding. So I'm sure some people are probably saying he should be using either his own funds or maybe his own campaign funds to help crowdsource them. And I'm just like all of this is wrong. Everything that's happening is wrong. We're basically fighting a gigantic beast. And everyone these are like bystanders who got caught up in the beast grasp.
Yes, they are.
And we're saying you should stop going after the beast and take a detour and go save all these people that the beast is attacking. But you're losing focus of the beast is the problem. The beast is the thing that we should all be remember that is a real enemy. Right? And that's the issue I have with this type of I don't know the full details. Like you talk about how he's thrown them under the bus in True Social. Maybe you're right. I haven't read all this kind of stuff, and maybe there's some validity to it and all that. Ultimately, I remember that the ultimate problem that we have is there is a beast, a gigantic snarling beast that's killing and destroying everything in his sight. And there are Ron DeSantis, there's Donald Trump, there's Vivek Ramaswamy, there's a lot of people who are trying at least to to take control at least of the reins again to try to corral this beast. And that's something I think we should always remember, because I'm maybe there's some validity to all these criticisms and all that, but ultimately I'm it sucks that we're in this situation.
Yep.
But it sucks too that these people just get away with it because they're basically the Borg, all the power before them, and they're unified in their incredibly malicious attacks. But the conservative side, we're getting caught in a lot of infighting.
Yep. Oh, I'm totally on board. I'm totally on board with the idea that the severity of the infighting that we're involved in should not be anywhere near this level of vitriol.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's one reason for the level of vitriol of why the infighting is so severe.
Okay.
And that's how Trump manages the infighting and how he labels other Republicans. If you had a normal Republican leader,
sure.
It's say if you had a Cruz DeSantis tickets, yeah, there'd be jabs,
sure,
but you wouldn't have this traitor who deserves to be executed.
Yeah, again it's the whole vacuum out. Okay, in a normal election year, for the last 50 years, let's say, in a normal election year, I'd be we got to look for the best possible candidate. But a lot of people have pointed out, everyone from Dan Bongino to Tim Pool to a lot of other Charlie Kirk, they talk about this. We're in this is an abnormal time in the country of the U.S. It's an absolutely abnormal time in the sense that we are now seeing the machine is basically like now it's out of control.
It's full bore and exposed for everybody to see.
Full born, exposed, out of control.
Yes.
Like not holding anything back. We're in very weird, bizarre times, and this is not a normal election. Not only are they attacking everyone in their sight, but there's also a lot of dangers of a lot of election like shenanigans
Issues,
might happen.
yes.
So it's like in a normal election, you and I would have a discussion and debate about who is the better candidate. In this election, the stakes are so high that I'm like, would Trump be my choice at any time in any time in history to be the leader and all that? There's a lot of arguments that maybe yes, maybe no, but at this time, I'm like, it's like I personally don't care if it's Trump or if it's DeSantis or if it's Vivek. Sorry. All of them are showing a lot of promise. Okay. But ultimately, like what I want to at least have a chance to take back the reins of control of the United States, because that is so crucial right now. These people don't care if we eat ourselves alive. They really don't.
No, and like I wish that the Republican Party was unified. I wish that there was like, okay, like this is the Republican Party stands for, and this is how we're going to achieve it, and this is what we're all going to like, and it goes through the process, and it's like, okay, like we have the general and we have the primaries, and it's like, all right, this is principles that we all can agree on, that we all can support, and we're not going to be like, oh, like just because you and I disagree on policy, you're the worst person ever.
Yeah.
And just because this and this and this, then you're a traitor, and like even when if I lose, then all of my supporters shouldn't support you in any way.
Yeah, no, exactly. It should
like,
everyone should be
everyone should be like, okay, like this is like, we want this to be a fair fight. We want this to be a battle over policy, but in the end, we all have the same goal. And unfortunately, right now, like whoever comes out of the Republican primary is going to lose probably at least 15 to 20% of Republican support.
Depends. There's a lot of contingencies there. It's not a guarantee, because you have to remember too, a lot of DeSantis supporters they love DeSantis.
Yeah,
they love DeSantis, but they're also, a lot of them are from Florida. Very large amount of them are from Florida. They will, because they see. I don't think that they're as ideological in the sense that they're going to be like, well, I refuse to. I would rather see my ship go down than Trump continue. Like people on the right are a lot more. They see the real problem. I think that they do. They may lose some support, but like, even Trump supporters have said, like, like very high profile ones have said, like, yeah, like if it's not Trump, like I will support the Republican candidate, whoever it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have been going on for this for quite some time, and we'll continue to go on about this, especially after the Republican primary election. I mean, a primary election debate that happens tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes.
It'd be crazy.
So that's to be seen, to be determined. Anyways, that's where we're going to end today's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all those who participated in the live stream. It was quite active and lively. But unfortunately, those who were asking interesting questions kind of bowed out before we could get some real answers. But that's okay. It is what it is. I hope that they do actually send us messages to continue the conversation.
That's fine.
But yeah, you and I both get exceptionally irritated at demands for immediate evidence and proof for everything that they're addressing, because it's super annoying.
My rule is I don't debate and provide evidence. Like
we can give. It's like, okay, like this is what happened, and it's like, if you want sources for us, then send us a message and we'll provide them. If you want like our beliefs down to a nutshell, if you want the rationale for why we believe them, sure, we'll give them to you. And then if you want the backing up of all this historical data and all that later, we're happy to give it to you. But demanding it in real time is foolish, and it's not arguing in good faith because we're the ones conducting and we're the ones conducting the live show, and we're focused on doing the live show, and we have a lot of other things to talk about, and we can't just switch over and do everything that you want us to do because it's not your show.
Like I said to that one person at the beginning, I'm like, there's not a podcast show on anywhere that will completely derail an entire show just to meet the demands for evidence from like a single commentary. There's not a single show out there that would do that. And the fact that you demanded, you have to prove everything to me right now, at my discretion. I'm like, no, nobody does that. And nobody caters to that kind of nonsense. So don't give me that.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
My rule is no, I don't do that.
Yeah. Anyway,
if you don't like it, that's fine.
So you can find our video footage that's not live streamed on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. Of course, please, we'd appreciate a like and a follow on Rumble. That way we can live stream onto Rumble, and Rumble is of course a very nice free speech platform, and they will not block you even if you disagree with what they have to say, or they disagree with what you have to say. If you want to follow us our text content, you can check us out at theshrewddudes.com or on Twitter, Getter, and Facebook. That being said, here at the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. We will see you on Thursday for our open mic night, so of course be sure to join the Discord, and you can join our audio chat on that server, and we can hopefully have a good discussion about anything that we want to talk about. And that is actually a discussion in which we would slightly derail the conversation to have a real and legitimate chat. Yeah. But not today.
Not today, bro.
Not today. So with that being said, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. And as always, God bless.
All right. See you later, bud.